If you're a perfectionist, you know it's a double-edged sword, and even though it has its upsides, it also leads to a lot of daily resistance. The main thing being you are consistent at not being consistent in finishing what you start. Like my dog here, he didn't want to go on a walk this morning because he was really sore. But, like my dog, we face this type of resistance as perfectionists. We tend to be excellent students and employees because we are given deadlines and we know what is expected of us. But as soon as we are left to our own devices, we tend to get overwhelmed by the tasks and goals we set for ourselves, and if we do not reach a level of perfection, we consider it to be mediocre. This is because we typically start projects out with an all-or-nothing attitude, only later to become disinterested or begin to procrastinate because we feel that we're not doing our best work. So if we're not going to do our best, it's not even worth putting out, sharing, publishing, or finishing. We find ourselves always seeking an ideal, and although this can be a healthy motivation to many, to a perfectionist who's so crippled by anxiety and self-criticism, we tend to obsess over our ideals and become deeply disappointed in ourselves if they don't live up to our expectations or if we don't reach a level of perfection, which takes up a lot of our mental energy and leaves us feeling dissatisfied with ourselves ultimately. The reason that most of us developed a maladaptive level of perfectionism is that when we were younger, we might have not received enough praise or been acknowledged for the things that we did right. Rather, the only attention we ever received was when we were being criticized for doing something wrong. And this is why most of us today harshly criticize ourselves and we judge ourselves for every inadequacy in our life instead of seeing the bigger picture and acknowledging everything we've accomplished so far. And we hold ourselves to the expectation to be perfect in every single way, and when we fail to do so, we feel completely miserable and inadequate, and nothing that we do could ever be right, so what is the point of even trying? The reality, though, is that perfection ultimately is an illusion because it is conceived in subjectivity, meaning that you are the one that gets to decide what perfection is and whether or not your life, your reality, this universe is perfect or not. And if it is perfect, then all uncalled for events are justified. And if you choose that it's not perfect, then everything is going to fall short of your expectation because ultimately you created a fantasy or were sold one by someone else. Perfectionism naturally occurs within our lives, and our perception of it is clouded by our own emotional states. As a perfectionist myself, I can say that one of the biggest hindrances of it is feeling like I need to live up to what others consider to be perfect, as well as letting myself choose to acknowledge that perfection can be experienced in the here and now, with the simple appreciation of being alive and not deceased. Remember that at the end of the day, we will be remembered by the way we treated others and what we did around others. No one will ever really know our most inner thoughts, only the things that we had enough courage to take action on. So if you're struggling to make progress in your personal, financial, or any other area in life, I advise you to let go of the compulsive thought pattern of inadequacy and remember that you are already living a perfect life in a perfect universe. And while that statement might be a little controversial, you get to decide perfection for yourself. And I see perfection in plants, in nature. I see it all the time. I see how it's working so beautifully and magnificently. And when I look back on my life, I also acknowledge that every single action that I took led me to where I am today. And everything worked out perfectly, right? On the other hand, you can choose not to identify as a perfectionist as well. Although some of the positive traits we do embody include setting high goals for ourselves and working hard towards them, we tend to have better attention to details than others. And when we do complete projects, they turn out way better than expected. We're always willing to try something over and over again until we see improvement, and we go the extra mile to deliver the best possible results. In the end, these are huge advantages when we're creating and reaching our best potential. So we must let go of our own internal pressure and overthinking by accepting what is right now. We must overcome the fear of not being able to achieve our own goals by remembering the simplicity of what brings us joy and applying that towards our work in the world. The important takeaway is that you get to decide what is perfection and what you want to create in this life. And ultimately, doing things with people, for people, that ultimately is the most important thing that we leave behind. So stop overthinking, breathe, be grateful, and do what brings you joy.